Welcome to my session, Revolutionize Your Testing Strategy with Mind Map Driven Testing. My name is Prashant Hegde, and I'm from India. I'm a passionate tester and an agile enthusiast. In the past 5 years, I've played various roles like an agile tester, a scrum master, and a product owner. I love writing. I'm an active blogger, and I've authored articles for leading software testing magazines. Today, I am here to share with you all my experiences, learnings, and knowledge on mind maps and how we can leverage this ultimate thinking tool to come up with an effective testing strategy. So this is what you can expect from my session. Today you will learn what are mind maps and how to draw mind maps right from scratch using the best practices. We will discuss the challenges that testers face with the traditional approach of test documentation and how we can overcome them by using mind maps as lean test artifacts. Today, we will learn how to design a lean test plan using mind maps and also how to design lean test cases using mind maps that will help you to boost your test coverage. So, how many of you here are aware about mind maps or have used mind maps in the past? Oh, quite a lot. That's good to know. So, a mind map can be called as a visual thinking tool. A mind map reflects externally what goes on inside your mind. A mind map basically helps you in visualization of your thought process. If I put my thoughts on a sheet of paper, it would look like a mind map. Mind mapping can be called as an effective learning technique, a technique that works best with your brain. It can be called as a brain-friendly or a brain-compatible learning technique. In simpler terms, mind mapping or a mind map is a diagram that represents complex information in a simplified visual form. Here is an example of a mind map which says something about chemistry. Remember, every mind map is drawn around a single topic. In this case, it's chemistry. And we draw branches from our central idea to which we add associated ideas as branches and sub-branches. At a very high level, I can see what chemistry is, but I also have the flexibility to drill down and look at the important details that are associated to chemistry. Now that we know what mind maps are, let's learn how to draw them using the best practices. So we start at the center of the page, and we represent our central idea at the center of the page. And we draw branches from our central idea. And if you look at the branches on the mind map, they are not straight, rather they are curved or curvilinear in nature. This is because our brains do not like straight lines. Curved lines give you a visual rhythm, which not only makes your mind map pleasant to look at, but also helps your brain to better engage. And if you can also observe, the mind map is filled with images and colors, right? An image is worth 1,000 words. If you have 10 images on your mind map, you probably have 10,000 equivalent words on your mind map. And speaking about colors, colors are exciting to our brain. Colors unleash imagination. Colors also help you to come up with mental shortcuts. They help you to unleash imagination, and also you can color code a particular part of your mind map with a different color so that you can distinguish it from the rest of the mind map easily. And if you look at the text on the mind map, we do not use long lines and sentences on the mind map. We try to use keywords on the mind map. This is because long lines and sentences will restrict your thinking. Having a keyword which will help you to absorb more information. Also, a keyword will help you to trigger more associations. The whole concept of mind mapping is based on the radiant thinking principle, which says that our brains are radiant in nature. Our brains think from the center and explode outwards. So a mind map is the representation of the same. So I'm not going to tell you any specific tool, or I'm not going to demo any tool today, but I have listed a set of tools that you can use to mind map on your computers. So all of them are freemium in nature. If you are a beginner and if you are using the mind maps for the first time, you can use Xmind, which is quite easy to get started with. Here is an illustration of how easily you can draw a mind map using Xmind. Coming to the context of software testing. Testers are expected to come up with several test artifacts during the process of software testing. Test artifacts or test documents like test cases, test plans, test reports, right? There are n number of documents that we need to create. The problem with the traditional test artifacts is that they are really, really time intensive. It takes a lot of time to create these documents. And these documents are huge. They are bulky in terms of their size, shape, and magnitude, right? And the main problem with the traditional documents is that their structure is not flexible to changes, right? When we are working in an agile or DevOps setting, we embrace changes, but these documents may limit us from being agile. Since their structure do not support changes, it's very hard to review, update, or modify them. And since it's very hard to update them, they go out of date quite quickly and stop adding any value. As testers, we need to realize that when we work in a highly compressed test execution cycles and we have very limited time to test, we cannot spend too much time on documentation. Documentation is not testing, but rather a chief distraction in software testing, right? And on the other hand, we cannot have no documentation at all. We need to find a balance and have something optimal and overcome all these problems. That's where mind maps come in. Mind maps make a perfect lean test artifact. What do I mean by a lean test artifact? A lean test artifact is a document that is optimal and conveys the same amount of information but using fewer details and lesser text. But it conveys the same amount of information. In accordance to lean principles, software testing should eliminate waste and amplify learning. That's exactly what mind maps do. When you're mind mapping, you will cut down a lot of documentation. And since we are mind mapping, it's an amazing brainial activity. It will help you to trigger more creative thoughts, and there is definitely scope to amplify your learning. The documents that are created using mind maps are really easy to create, they are easy to update, and most importantly, their structure will support changes. When we look at practical examples, you can relate how easy it is to make changes on a mind map. So the first thing that we testers do in a software testing lifecycle is to come up with a test plan. According to IEEE 829, there are 16 different components that needs to be a part of the test plan. Imagine how huge this document will be if I have all the 16 sections in place, right? Testers either follow this IEEE 829 format or some extensive format provided by their company. After spending a lot of time, they create a test plan. But the sad part is, once the test plan is ready, nobody even bothers to read it, right? This is more of a ceremonial artifact. 60 to 70% of the times, a test plan is never being read, right? So a document is only useful when somebody is reading it, right? And when nobody is reading it, forget about reviewing it. This goes out of date quite quickly and stops adding any value. So here is the first approach of coming up with a lean test plan using mind maps. Any newbie tester who has never designed a test plan before can also come up with his own test plan using this technique. So here is how it works. Your release name will go as the central idea. You'll specify what's in scope for the release. What are the features that you'll be testing? And what are the types of testing you will be performing on these features? On the other hand, specify what are the features that you will not be testing and the types of testing you will not be performing. That's it. That summarizes a one-page test plan. Remember, a simple and easily updatable test plan is much, much more superior than a 100-page test plan that does not add value and the test plan that is not read by anyone, right? Let's assume there is a change. Let's assume that security testing is now in scope for the release. All I have to do is delete this branch and add it over here. Modern mind mapping softwares make it really easy to do this change. Whenever there is a change, all you might have to do is delete a couple of branches and add a couple of branches. So that's how flexible mind maps are to changes. Let's assume you want to come up with a more detailed test plan than this. Then you can use the 5Ws technique along with the mind maps. So here is how it works. Answer why we are doing this, when we are doing this, where we are doing this, who all are involved, and what needs to be done. In the why section, answer Why are we coming up with this test plan? Specify the objective of the test plan. You might also want to answer, why are you building this product at the first place, right? What problem are we trying to solve? In the when section, answer everything about your schedules and your releases. Specify your sprint length, your release cycles, your release start dates, end dates. Everything about your schedules and your releases will go in the when section. In the where section, describe the different environments wherein testing will take place, and you can add it in detail in the where section. In the who section, answer to the question, who are the people who are involved in the project, what are their roles, what are their responsibilities. So specify everything about your team, their roles and their responsibilities in the who section. Finally, in the what section, brainstorm all possible whats that you can think of, like what's the definition of done, right? What are the different devices that we are supporting? What are the browsers we are supporting? Think of all possible whats that can add value and add them in the what section. Once you do this, you have a one-page test plan that summarizes the entire scope of your testing. So how many of us here enjoy writing test cases? Okay, 2 of them like writing test cases, so it's very obvious. So as a believer in exploratory approach of software testing, I feel that as a tester, I do not need a test case document to drive my testing, right? So when following this agile approach of software development, wherein features are developed on the fly and changes are coming in rapidly, sometimes it becomes pointless to write test cases because I might have to do a lot of rework when these changes come in. So today we will learn 2 different approaches of coming up with a lean test plan. A lean test case. They are user features and freestyle. Let's get started with user features. Let's assume that you are testing a simple text editor called Notepad, right? And here is how you start. Your application name and your icon will go as the central idea. And every branch that is coming out of your central idea represents one feature or one branch that you want to test. So I have identified 8 features that I want to test. The next step is to come up with test ideas for the features that you have identified. What do I mean by a test idea? Test idea can be a lightly documented test case or a one-liner test case, right? It's a more generic way of saying test cases. So if you look at the approach of writing test ideas, If you look at the approach of writing test ideas, I have not used extensive steps or detailed steps to represent my test cases, right? I have not used detailed steps like launch the application, click on file menu, click on save button. The expected result is the file should be saved. Right? I'm not using any extensive format as such. This is because as testers we are smart enough and we do not need detailed steps to execute our own test cases. This also helps us to come out of this scripted mentality and be more exploratory in nature. Make mind maps a dynamic document, a living document. As and when you execute your tests, update your mind map. I have represented the test that passed with the green tick mark and the test that failed with the red cross. Helps me identify what test passed and what test failed. Once you come up with test ideas for all the features, you have a bird's eye view of your test coverage. I can clearly see which features have test cases and which feature do not have any test cases. I can see that feature open does not have any test case. So this prevents me from not having test cases for any of my features or modules. I can also have the clarity about some of the features like view, print, and save as have limited test cases compared to other features, right? I might want to strengthen these areas by adding some more test cases as well. And I can also see the complete progress of my test execution or my test run. I can see which test cases are executed, which test cases are not executed, which test cases passed, which test cases failed, right? I have the complete transparency of my testing. Another beautiful thing that I love absolutely about mind maps is once you execute all your tests, you need not have to spend any additional time to come up with a test report. The final version of your mind map itself can act as a test report. You can share the same picture with your stakeholders. It acts as a dashboard for them, tells the entire story of your testing in one picture. If you look at the approach that we took, we used one single mind map to design our tests. We used the same mind map to execute our tests. We used the same mind map as our test report. Think about the amount of time you will save in test documentation. And during the whole process, our entire focus was on test idea generation rather than on documentation, right? So here is a more realistic example of one of the mind maps that I and my team drew. So you can actually collaboratively mind map with your team. You and your team can work on the same mind map and come up with test ideas. So all the modern mind mapping softwares give you the capability to do that. So there is no predefined set of rules that you need to follow when you're mind mapping, right? You can come up with your own style of mind mapping according to the context of your project or your product. So a couple of years back, I was testing an application called as Inblocks, which was an email client for iPhone. And there was a new feature developed wherein user could add up to 3 different email accounts. And I was asked to test this feature. I decided to use mind maps instead of traditional ways of testing. So you can see I have used a similar approach as user features, but one thing that I did really differently was I added bugs along with screenshots directly onto the mind map. The success of Agile hugely depends on early and rapid feedback. That's exactly what I wanted to do. I did not want to spend too much time in documenting my tests or writing extensive bug reports. I wanted to give an early feedback to my developers about the newly developed feature, right? I shared the same picture with my developers, and they were able to fix the bugs really early in the development life cycle, making us truly agile. So we have come to the end of the presentation. Today we learned what are mind maps and how to draw mind maps right from scratch. We discussed the challenges with traditional documents and how to overcome them using mind maps as lean test artifacts. We learned how to design lean test cases using mind maps using 2 different approaches, in scope, not in scope, and using the 5Ws technique. We also learned how to design lean test cases using mind map using 2 different approaches, that is user features and freestyle. So the first thing that I want you to do when you leave here today is to design your first mind map. Pick any feature that you are testing, apply any of the approaches we discussed today, and do share your feedback with me. I would love to hear about your experiences and learnings on using mind maps. And please feel free to connect with me and share your experiences. I look forward from hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prashant. It's very interesting, very useful, and looks very, very easy to use by everyone. Okay, questions. Can you recommend any way to, or tool, how to integrate mind maps with other tools like Jira, Jenkins, etc.?
So I haven't integrated mind maps with any of the tools like Jira or Jenkins, but I think any of the tools might come up with these integrations, but right now I don't think there is a way to integrate Jira with mind maps, so not very sure of that.
Okay, if you allow me, I know one add-on in Jira that draws you mind maps out of the issues that you have in Jira. So if you store everything in Jira, then your mind map actually comes for free.
Oh, that's great.
So that actually gives you a representation of the data you have in Jira. Okay, sorry. Next one. How can we calculate coverage between automated tests and mind map?
So mind maps can be also used to do this, traceability thing, right? You can also use mind maps for traceability, right? You can actually group the test cases that can be automatable, right? You can have all the test cases which can be automated in a section, and you can obviously, keep a check on your mind map about which tests have been automated and which tests have not been automated. So I think it's fairly easy to have traceability integrated within your mind map. So, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. Do you think a test plan is necessary in an agile environment?
I also feel that test plan is not necessary. That's why I'm recommending you to use mind maps, which is a more leaner way of doing test plan, right? So I feel you can use a mind map instead of the traditional test plan in an agile environment. So that's what I recommend.
The next one we had already, I guess. And so what if we write test cases to other people? Will they understand these mind map-based tests without my cooperation?
So the answer is really simple here. So when you write test cases in a text format, your colleagues are able to understand it, right? So I think mind map should not be a problem, right? You can come up with some of the protocols or some of the templates, or you need to establish a standard of how you use mind maps. Just like the way we write test cases, we have some standard format to write test cases, right? So we can have some standards in mind maps as well, which you and your company or your colleagues can easily read and understand. So yeah.
Good. So next one, we still have some minutes. So next one, based on your experience, what was the most useful case for creating a mind map, even if it out of the testing space?
Okay, so I mean, mind maps can be used in any phase of your life as well. It need not have to be in software testing. So I'm here in Europe for the next 15 days. So I have planned my entire itinerary using a mind map. So I can show it to you offline once you're there. So not just in testing, but you can use mind maps, anywhere in life. We call mind maps as Swiss Army knife for your brain. You can use mind maps anywhere, right from planning, or for example, I used it to plan my itinerary. You can do it in any situations or in any activities where thinking is involved. So yeah.
Thank you. Next one, how would you solve traceability between test cases and found defects? What should be retested after a bug fix?
How would you solve? I do not get the question.
So I guess you had a slide on this. So basically, how do you see a defect and how can you trace back the defect to the test cases and requirements?
There is a way to create a traceability matrix instead of the traditional way of doing traceability matrix. You can use mind maps. I have written a detailed blog about it. So I think I will share the resources with you about how to create a traceability mind map. So that will actually answer this question.
Next one, very important, I think. Do you see mind maps as being able to version control?
I think some of the tools like Coggle, which help you to do collaborative mind mapping, have this version control. I think you guys can explore a tool called Coggle, which is out there, which will help you to collaboratively mind map. It also has this version control as well. Yep.
Okay, and maybe one more. Can you show an example of mind map created for a project with many dependencies or for a quite big project?
Yeah, I can definitely show it offline. So I tried to show in one of my slides, but I could only show you only a part of it. But I do have realistic examples with me, so I can show it to you once I'm offline. Yeah?
Good. I'm just having a look. Yeah, maybe we do that one more. How is mind map, sorry, people are interested, that's good. So how is mind map compatible with the documentation standards and ISO required for product development?
I'm not sure about this. So the whole purpose of doing mind mapping is to, create leaner documents. I'm not sure if you want some standards and ISO, I'm not sure how you can use it. The whole purpose of doing mind mapping is to reduce waste by cutting down documentation.